ההרצאה, תודה רבה לעוז, שאני שמחתי ללמוד ממך דברים חדשים, להכיר אותך, והיה מעניין. ההרצאה השנייה היא של דוקטור סקוט סטריפלינג, ארגון ABR, Associates for Biblical Research. הוא פרסם רבות וחפר רבות, ואנחנו שמחים מאוד שהוא מופיע כאן. Dr. Scott Stripling is the director of the excavations for the Associates for Biblical Research at Ancient Shiloh from 2017 to present. He also serves as provost and director of our Archaeology Institute at the Biblical Seminary in Katy, Texas. Previously, Stripling directed several other excavations in Israel. Stripling did his graduate studies in the University of Texas, וכולי, etc. Stripling serves as president of the board of the directors of the Near East Archaeological Society and has published widely in peer-reviewed journals, popular magazines, and books. He's a popular speaker, etc. Scott is a personal friend of mine. When he excavated the unique site of Khirbet Makatir near Ofra, where I live, we were excited together with him when we visited the hiding system at the site where the bones of 7 women and a boy were found, who were murdered by the Romans about a year before the destruction of Jerusalem. Here you see me and him and the burial wood. Here, both of us inside the cave where the hidden system begins. We buried them at the entrance of our cemetery in Ofra. In this picture, you can see Scott and Abigail, one of his team members, together with me and 2 other friends from Ofra, near the grave of the women and the boy. All of you are invited to see and to visit the place in the cemetery of Ofra. Dr. Scott, please.
Boker Tov, good morning. Thank you, Yoel, my good friend. It's good to see you. This is the slides advance, okay. And I want to talk to you today about the late Bronze Age Favisa at Shiloh. But first, let me thank Aaron for organizing the conference, the Glenwood Synagogue for hosting it, Benny and the entire Kamat staff for allowing me to partner with them on the important excavations at Shiloh. We have been working in the area of Judea Samaria, ABR, since the late 1970s at Sukkot, Khirbet Nisia, and then later at El Makatir, which Yoel just mentioned, and now at Shiloh. So we have a very exciting excavation, and I want to talk to you about that today. So let's see if we get working here. I'll use the arrow. So the area is interesting, and we are able to call this a favisa following Roskletter's criteria, 6-fold criteria. How do we know the difference between a foundation deposit and a refuse pit and a favisa? Because some people throw around the term favisa. So 6 criteria. For example, we have a record of a temple of some sort, something that is cultic in nature, that was at the site in antiquity. We have votive vessels that are found in the deposit. We have an intentional deposition of bones and other material, not just haphazardly or randomly thrown into this pit. And we can detect stratigraphy of some sort within the deposit. And then there are also special objects that are found. There's also evidence of burning that exists from incense and sacrificial offerings and so forth. We have all 6 in the favisa, and so I'm confident in calling it a favisa. Now, as you know, Bar Ilan University excavated at Shiloh in the early 1980s from 81 to 84 in multiple areas, including Area D, where they uncovered this late Bronze Age favisa. And you can see the area at the end of the 2019 season. This is after we had excavated 3 seasons, attempting to connect the work that the Danish had done in the 1920s and 30s with the work that Bar Ilan had done in the 1980s, and to open up a broader area and to bring it all together. But we had not yet begun to deal with the favisa. I guess maybe it's not turned on. There we go. Now it'll work. Once we turn it on, I think. Or not. Yeah. So we'll just say on the eastern edge is our area D. The areas of excavation are demarcated here. We have areas H and K with a modern pathway going through the middle of it. And then on the eastern edge of the site, northeastern edge of the site, is area D. And so we began then after the pandemic, because we missed 2 seasons of excavation, we opened up the area and began to remove the balks. After 40 years, they were unstable, and whatever value they had to show us stratigraphy needed to be discovered now, and also they were a safety hazard. We hoped to recover additional material, and we were very pleased with what we did find. Now, you can see the photo from the 1980s where Finkelstein did a deep cut in the eastern edge through the glacis, and accidentally discovered the favisa. It was in an attempt to do this section cut that the favisa was found. And the finds are quite amazing. With the technology that we have today, from the balks, we are able to recover more data than they got from the squares. And so I'll show you some of the similarities and differences. So again, this is what it looked like before we began in 2022 to remove the balks, clean the area, and then the ancillary areas to touch on those. And at the end of this last season, just a few months ago, this is now what the area looks like. So all of the balks, except 3, have been removed, and this coming summer we plan to remove those. The silos have been restored and conserved, and the problem is that the silos were cut into the favisa in a later time period. So Bar Ilan thought that it was in iron 1. We now think that it was probably iron 2A. So the stratigraphy that existed is jumbled. So you cut in these silos, maybe 11, 12, or 13 silos, and then all the material that was there is then cast about. So you get MB material up at the top, and you've got Iron Age material thrown around. But in areas that are undisturbed, we can clearly see microstratigraphy that exists. Here's a description of the favisa in the various strata, and this is very similar to what we have found. The only difference is that we date these silos to iron 2A instead of iron 1. This is Jordan McClinton, who is a PhD student, and he's supervising the work in Area D. Bar Ilan found 2,621 LB sherds, which yielded 104 repairable vessels. That's a lot. And that's one of the 6 Kletter criteria for a favisa, is that you have an abundance of restorable vessels, because the vessels were intentionally broken as part of the sacrificial process. They also found about 3,000 bones. The ABR Kamat excavation has found about 1,002 LB sherds so far, just from the balks, including 6 whole vessels. ABR has found about 6,000 bones and countless bone fragments. Professor Haskell Greenfeld is our zooarchaeologist, and all of the bones are undergoing analysis, and we'll know a lot more in the coming days. BIU found 1 gold object. We have found 6 gold objects just from the balks that we have removed, and that lets us know, with the technologies of metal detecting and wet sifting, we're able to find so much more than they were able to find in the 1980s. Unfortunately, the dump pile from Area D went over the edge, the steep edge, and to recover it would be quite a project, but I'm sure there are other objects that were missed that are in that. You can see the faunal remains, and this is sort of an initial analysis of our area. Finkelstein had noted that there was a disproportionality. There were more bones from the right side of the animal than from the left side of the animals, and you're talking thousands of bones, so it can't just be an accident. There has to be an explanation. And he never ventured upon the explanation, but I would suggest to you that Leviticus chapter 7 is somewhere you might begin, that the right side of the animal was the priest's portion, and of course we had priests who were living at Shiloh. So about 94-95% of the bones are from clean, kosher animals. They exhibit evidence of sacrifice, and we don't know with the random fallow deer bones and a random fish bone here and there if those are from the Iron Age 2A period or from some later period as well. So these are some of the BIU restored vessels. You can visit them. They're on display, many of them at Kamat right now. Notice in particular the carinated goblets in items 7, 8, and 11. This is, again, one of the 6 Kletter criteria that you're looking for. Goblets are cultic in nature. So when you have cultic material and dozens of goblets, for example, and they're clearly LB, nobody's going to dispute that, then again, this paints an overall picture of what we have there. This is some of the pottery. From our excavations, you can again see very classic, typical signs of LB2 pottery, interior bichrome, concentric circles, and so forth. Now, the BIU Bar Ilan assessment was that the Favisa pottery is a typical LB assemblage, mostly dating from LB1A through the early part of LB2A. Shiloh was inhabited up to the beginning of the LB2A and then deserted through the remainder of the LB2A and 2B periods before being re-inhabited in Iron Age 1. That was their view. Now, mine is slightly different. We've calibrated the dates a little bit, but you can see the dates that Finkelstein gave for the Favisa and then the adjusted dates that we have based on our carbon dating, our ceramic analysis, and so forth. So I'm seeing it as more LB2. Finkelstein saw it more as LB1. So a bit more about the ceramic analysis. Finkelstein maintained that most of the assemblage was from the LB1 horizon, and a small part of the assemblage was from the beginning of LB2A. However, our analysis demonstrates that an overwhelming amount of the assemblage is from the LB2 horizon. And the conclusion is that nothing within the assemblage is uniquely LB1. In other words, what forms that were identified as LB1 also continue into LB2A and some of them into LB2B. So all of those forms, to me, point more toward the 14th and 13th century rather than the 15th and 14th century. I realize these are small points that we're talking about, but they're important points when we're trying to understand the chronology of the site. So here are some of the distinctive LB2 forms from the Favisa. A ring-based 2 carinated bowl. It first appears in LB2A and it continues into LB2B. And then this is, of course, your classic white slip 2 imported milk bowl with a checkerboard motif and a wishbone handle. Again, first appears around LB2A and continues into LB2B. This is kind of a collection of sherds, if you will, what we would call Mycenaean 3A or Halladic 3A sherds, and these do not appear in the region of Judea, Samaria, specifically Shiloh region, until LB2A. So again, we have a preponderance of evidence that is pointing us toward the LB2A and extending into the LB2B. Now, according to Bob Mullins, who did his PhD dissertation on the Bet Shean Bronze Age pottery and, of course, authored the Bronze Age section for Gattin's new pottery books. According to Mullins, the Shiloh Favisa assemblage is identical to the Bet Shean ceramic assemblage, and that is in the LB1B, LB2A horizon, again suggesting that perhaps Finkelstein had dated this material a little early. So this gives you a good idea of what it looked like when we began excavating, and we see the heart of the Favisa in this area right here. And so in the 2022 season, this was the first bulk that we removed. Very interesting to see what we would find. And we found our first gold star. So there's 3 important things. We have pottery, we have bones, and then we have special objects. And so let's talk about gold. Many archaeologists, some of you here, have told me you've worked your entire career and never found gold objects. That's not atypical. What we have found in this very small area are 7 gold objects. So this is what the first one looked like. It's a typical 8-pointed star. This is what some call the Star of Ishtar. You can see the clasp on it. And if you look very closely, you can see it here with the black arrow pointing to it in situ. So again, our team did a fantastic job. It's sheet gold. It's incredibly thin, and we didn't break any of them. All of them we recovered without breaking them. So we were metal detecting the area very carefully to alert us if something was there so that we could be very careful, and then it was not broken, recovered then from that. The same season, 2022, in cleaning up a balk, getting it ready for excavation, we discovered another gold object. And lo and behold, it was also a gold star. So at this point, you can imagine, we're thinking, this is amazing. We knew that Bar Ilan had found 1 gold object. Now, just in the balks, we're finding lots of gold. Again, metal detection helped us detect this. And you can see a parallel for this from the Lachish Phos temple. I might say also that a good parallels for the Shiloh Favisa would be the Lachish Phos temple, in particular, and Tel El Ajul as well. And then we found a third gold object in 2022, and it was a clasp, a pendant bead of some sort, if you will. So in our first season of working within the Favisa, we have 3 gold objects just from these 2 balks. So needless to say, now it has our full attention that this really does point toward a Favisa. People did not lose gold in the ancient world. These are intentional gifts or deposits, at least so it seems to me. In the 2023 season, we opened 5 additional balks, putting additional manpower into Area D, and we recovered another gold object, a gold spoon pendant, if you will, from balk N4. And this is what it looks like, front and back. And so perhaps this was worn around the neck as some sort of a pendant. But again, gold had extreme value in antiquity, and now we're finding this collection of gold in a very small area. And then we have another gold object from 2023. This is the only one that we can't identify. Perhaps some of my colleagues here today can help me identify this. But this is part of something. We're just not exactly sure what it is at this point. Incidentally, we have an article coming out on some of these gold objects in the next issue of Judea-Samaria Research Studies. Not all of them, but some of them. And so altogether in 2022, 2023, you can see the gold objects, where those objects were found. And then the 2024 season, we opened 3 additional balks, and not surprisingly, we did uncover another gold object. Now, the next slide that I'm about to show you, please do not take pictures of, because this is going to end up on the volume of one of the Shiloh volumes of publication. It's a very important pick. Also sheet gold, extremely thin and fragile, and very fortunate that we did not damage it. And here you can see what it looks like. You have a human face, a late Bronze Age human face, and if you poke around very much, you will see good parallels for this. King Agamemnon, for example, looks very much like the images of the Greek king Agamemnon, and you have it here at Shiloh. So that's the official photograph, yes? Okay. And then this is the one gold piece that Bar Ilan found. It is sort of a pendant of sorts, if you will, butterfly pendant perhaps. So together now, we have 6 + 1, 7 gold pieces, and we still have 2.5 balks to remove, plus a little bit of unexcavated area that was left behind. So we'll see how much we find in toto. So here's what it looks like then, the distribution of the gold finds from the Favisa so far, taken together with the ceramic analysis, the faunal analysis, and then the special objects. It very much looks like we have a late Bronze Age II Favisa at ancient Shiloh, and matching the overall view of what we are finding at the site. of an ancient cultic site. Now, since I have a couple of minutes left, I'll say this. The view of the Bar Ilan University team was initially that whatever the cultic site was at Shiloh was on the summit. And Finkelstein thought that it was a Canaanite temple that was there, and that when the Israelites arrived, whenever he thought they arrived back then, I'm not sure what he thinks now, but that the Israelites scraped off all the remains of the Canaanite sacrificial system. I suppose he thought there were just massive piles of bones lying around on some Canaanite temple on the top, and that they went at one time, the whole thing was deposited into what became a favisa. Now, the way I see this is that this is not Canaanite, this is Israelite. And so you have evidence then of gradual distribution, intentional laying down of this favisa, microstratigraphy, if you will, over a period of time. So in trying to understand this, your options are either you have a Canaanite favisa or you have an Israelite favisa. Hopefully over our next 4 seasons of excavation, we'll get some additional clarity. And here are my references, and I don't know if we have time for questions, or is that saved for later? Okay, well, thank you very much.